Hello, my name is Rick Lewis. I'm with Venon Hoop Report. On today's Coach's Corner, I have Coach Evan Fancourt from Greensboro Page. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me, man. This is a cool opportunity. Hope you and the family are doing well, but I'm excited to get a chance to talk hoops and brag on my guys a little bit, man. I don't get to do it as much. I used to do it every day. Now I don't get to do it as much.
Well, Coach, you attended Grimsley High School. You graduated there, and the most important award that I think you got while you was at Grimsley was you won the Bob Sawyer's Most Improved Award winner. Talk about your work ethic as a player in high school.
Well, two things really. One, kind of like what drove me, man. I remember growing up, I had a buddy who lived in the neighborhood whose dad was a basketball coach. He was an assistant coach at two different schools. He was an assistant at High Point Central and then an assistant at Grimsley. And growing up, hanging out with my buddy, I would go to games with him sometimes to watch his dad. And I remember two games in particular. I went to a High Point Central versus High Point Andrews game, and then I went to a Grimsley Page game. And I was like, I can't remember. I guess I was maybe fifth grade, sixth grade, maybe right in middle school. And I was like, man, this is something I got to be a part of. It was just the environment. It was just so cool. And so I kind of started idolizing like those guys, those high school guys that particularly I lived like walking distance to Grimsley. So then I started going to more of those games. And I was like, man, it was just something I really wanted to be a part of. And so that kind of drove me. I was like, I got to figure out a way to get out there on the floor and be a part of what's going on. But the hard part is there was really, really good players back then. I mean, when I got to Grimsley, there were like Cameron Bennerman was there. He ended up playing at State, I guess a little bit before your son got there. And I was like, I had to figure out a way to get out there. And I wasn't as good as everybody else. So I just kind of had to grind and work. And I guess that's what led to them feeling like I deserved a Most Improved Award. Not your prettiest award, but I'll take it.
Well, Coach, you achieved academic success and also success on the basketball court when you was at Grimsley. And you was able to attend Lynchburg College, which is a Division III school in the ODAC. And people don't understand the quality of play at the Division III level. Talk about your experience at Lynchburg.
Well, yeah, man, to be honest with you, I didn't understand the quality of play before I got there. I was kind of under the impression, I was like, man, I'm from Greensboro, went to a big public high school. I noticed a lot of the guys that were coming in or already on the roster were kind of like from some small towns and up north, places I didn't recognize. And I was like, man, I'm about to go in there and I'm about to dog all these dudes. And I got there and I was like, wow. Some guys might not pass the eye test or whatever, but there were some dudes out there that could straight play, man. Some really, really good ball players, really good coaches. The quality was just it kind of smacked me in the face. Like I said, I thought I was going to come in and play right away and be able to make an impact, and I didn't really start getting any clock until my sophomore year. Just a couple things that stand out to me. One, while I was there, every year, the ODAC it's still really good, but while I was there, Virginia Wesleyan won the national championship my sophomore year. Hampton-Sydney, Randolph-Macon also made deep runs. Guilford made a couple deep runs while I was there. And every single year I was there, somebody in the ODAC every year would end up like in those preseason games, exhibition games, beat a Division I opponent. I remember Guilford with like Ben Strong and Sanborn and those guys. They beat Elon one year. Virginia Wesleyan beat Norfolk State. Hampton-Sydney beat Longwood. A lot of just really good players and really, really good teams, man. And then on the academic side, just really, really good schools. I mean, that's when you break it down, that's really kind of their recruiting pitch. They're not going to necessarily say, hey, look at our facilities, or there's some really nice facilities, don't get me wrong, but that's not what they're recruiting you for. They're recruiting you like, hey, you can come play ball and get a great education. So, right. I mean, some of the schools, man, like I didn't realize it until really after, but like a Washington and Lee, for example, that's an Ivy League caliber school. Emory in Atlanta has a doctoral program. You can become an MD at Emory. What are the schools up north? Williams and some of those. I mean, just high level academic schools that are really on par with kids could get into Princeton and Harvard and those type of schools, and they're going to some of these smaller schools.
Now, in 2008, you graduated from Lynchburg College and you returned back to your alma mater, and you had a chance to be the assistant coach at Grimsley. What did that mean to you immediately after graduating from Lynchburg?
It was really special, man. It was the first place I thought of right when I graduated. It was the same coach I played for, Coach Corbett. And right when I graduated, I knew the minute I stopped playing there that Like I can specifically remember a moment walking off the floor my senior year, knowing my time was done. And I was like, man, I'm going to come back and coach. Not necessarily at Grimsley, but like I knew like it hit me. I want to be a part of this for longer. So I knew I wanted to coach high school hoops, particularly public high school hoops right there. And so I called Coach Corbett. He was the first call I made. I probably should have been calling other businesses and stuff trying to get a higher paying job, but I called him and got on staff. And that year, man, is a moment or a year that I really reflect back on a lot. And I kind of got to check myself sometimes and remember why, because that year it was the most pure as a coach I ever was, man. All I wanted to do was help kids. I didn't care about wins and losses or whatever. I was like, I just wanted to get in the building, get in the gym and help some of these young kids kind of try to achieve their dreams and stuff like that. And, it was great, man. Anything I could do to help kids back then. A couple times I was still living in my parents' house. Players had some tough situations or whatever. They'd come stay at the house. And like I said, now that I've become a head coach and you got so many other things going on, I want to win games. I'm, kind of get blinded by some of that stuff. I want to win more games than Freddie Johnson somehow. I don't know how I'm going to have to eat more vegetables or something because I'm going to have to live to 100. But I got to check myself and look back at that year and be like, man, remember how all you cared about was, trying to help these kids grow on and off the court.
Well, from 2008 to 2014, you was assistant coach back at Grimsley, but finally in 2014, you got your chance and you became a head coach at Southern Alamance. What was it like for you going from assistant coach to head coach in such a short period of time?
Yeah, man, it was at Southern Guilford, even though Southern Alamance was in our conference. But I tell you, you're not as prepared as you think you are, at least with me. I thought I was like, man, a little cocky, a young guy. I really thought, even as an assistant, watching the other teams and stuff like that, I thought I was going to waltz into it and be able to really win games right away. And Southern had good athletes. So I really thought that I was more prepared than I was. And I'll never forget, man, that first game, I think it was November 17th. We played Ragsdale at home. And I was like, all right, man, we're about to go out here and walk the dogs on these dudes. And I was so exhausted before the referee even threw the ball up for tip. Just the planning of it. I'm kind of OCD and just like, all right, actually having to be in charge of every little thing that happens. Like I got to clean the court. I got to set up the gym. We're watching film at 4:30 in this classroom. Let me make sure all the technology works. And then we're going for a team meal in the cafeteria. Let me make sure I got that in place. What time are we going to the locker room? What time are guys going back to the training room? What time are we going to shoot around in the auxiliary gym? All those things that like I never really had to fully take full responsibility of, man. By the time that game got there, I was like, I don't even know if I can stand up and coach this thing. I'm done. My eyes were bloodshot. And then we actually, like I said, and then not even being prepared in game as much. I remember thinking like, man, we're more athletic than these guys. And we got up big. We got up 17, and it was Coach Shoemaker at the time, and he's a really good coach, really good X and O guy. And he made some adjustments and stuff like that, and they came back and went on a buzzer beater. And I was like, from that moment on, I was like, man, I gotta check myself a little bit.
Well, being a head coach or being named a new head coach has its challenges. And when you went to Southern Guilford, you inherited a program that went 1-23. But you turned the program around in 2019 and you recorded the most wins in school history. Talk about what it meant for you going from, a 1-23 season in a short period of time. And then a few years later, you turned the program around into a conference tournament team.
Yeah, well, Southern had good athletes. It was a school that had the football team had been good recently. There was good athletes out there. And so the focus was really on culture and player development. And I know culture is kind of a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. And I believe I listened to, I can't remember who it was, maybe Shaka Smart was talking about, man, culture, people think you can change the culture right away. And I kind of had to learn that the hard way. Yeah. Culture is something that's built up over time. So I immediately you can change the environment right away though. Like what are the expectations when we're going to do, more off-season development, all that stuff. So I kind of changed the environment immediately and tried to set in place things that would help build the culture. And then player development was just really big. And it's something that my staff and myself have really prided ourselves on, is just helping kids grow, sweat equity, being in the gym a lot. And we kind of look at it holistically. Like think a lot of times player development gets looked at as like, all right, I got to improve this kid's left hand, or I got to improve his jump shot, or I got to improve his range. We try to look at it from a holistic standpoint, man, like mental, physical, his skill set, everything. So we really spend a lot of time with our guys. It's a 365, day a year type thing where we're really trying to look at every little aspect of making them better. I got a great assistant coach, Coach Harris. He's been with me since the beginning of this thing, and he works with PGC. He's really good with developing guys. Coach McNair is now with me. He's done some stuff with y'all. He's great with the technology. And Coach Thornton is a coach of mine he played at Carolina for Roy Williams, so he brings a great perspective. And even guys in the past that are not with me now, some really, really good coaches that have really helped develop guys sort of year round. And like I said, holistically, not just their skill set, but making these guys, a little mentally tougher, just better all around people.
Well, that year you made it to the third round of the playoffs.
Yeah. We actually found some success. We won the conference tournament my second year, and that's kind of what kicked it into gear. Was you change the environment, you start working on player development, and then there comes a point where your dudes are good enough to win, but you got to learn how to win. And I never forget what we called a break, man. We played North Forsyth the last conference game of the year with Coach Vestal. They had like Anthony Hicks, some really good players at that time. And they beat us on like a buzzer beater. And we had to turn around and play them in the first round of the conference tournament. And they were a bit more talented team than us, higher seed. And we ended up beating them on a buzzer beater. And then we went on to win the conference tournament. And kind of from that moment on is like it clicked with the program. It's like, all right, not only did we win, we got a little hardware, we won a trophy. And then kind of from that moment on, that was sort of the expectation was like, all right, we're going to win ball games here. And then we ended up winning the conference regular season the next year, won the conference tournament again in 2019 when you're talking about. And the players everybody just got better and better each year.
After the success you had at Southern Guilford, the job came open at Greensboro Page, and last season you were named the head coach there. And they had a losing season. I think they finished last in the conference. And again, you turned the program around. You went 16-10 your first season at Greensboro Page, and you made it to the second round of the playoffs. So again, you had to go in and first of all change the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Page was a little different dynamic. Southern Guilford, it had been a long time since they'd experienced success. I think you had to go back to like the 90s. Page had success in the, very recently. It was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I guess. Page was a kid from Lake Norman, I think, hit like a half-court shot in the state semifinal. Page was a buzzer beater, a half-court shot away from the state championship game. Guys like Jeremy Harris, Ty Graves, DeAndre Overton, Xavier Hill-Mays, some really good players. That was, I think, with Coach Abel, and then Coach Harder, who's our athletic director, took over, and he had some great years, a lot of regional finals and conference championships and things like that. And they just had kind of tailed off there at the very end as Coach Harder transitioned to being the AD now. So there was more in place to be really good right there. We just kind of had to more so quickly change the environment and kind of get in the gym and just sort of sweat equity, and was fortunate to have some good players in place that were just sort of young, and even some really good seniors in place, and had some really good players kind of transfer in as well.
I remember last year you were playing in the Gate City Classic that we had at Greensboro Day, and you guys had a nice win. And I remember you and I were talking, and you wanted to get more of those type of events.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was something that really intrigued me about Page. Is I think we could put ourselves on sort of a higher platform and play in more big time games. Already we played in that event. The Hayco's a really good Christmas tournament that we play in, and it's just something that I just want to get my guys out there as much as we can, put them in as many difficult situations as possible. And I think, your events have helped us. Shoot, we played in your event. We went down, I guess, was that in Rock Hill in the summer?
Right.
Down in South Carolina. And we went down there and we got our butts whooped down there over and over again. But it was just tough because we hadn't had any practices. We basically were just playing pickup ball out there. And so it felt good to play in the summer and kind of struggle in your event, and then play in your event at the day school in early November and get a good win. And, I think it kind of helped put our program out there and, say, all right, maybe these guys are serious.
Well, I think it helps also being a public school to play in events that they're also top private school teams as well, and get your kids on that platform and get their names out there. I think that it just enhances what you're trying to do at Greensboro Page.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's one of my goals is I want my kids and my families in my program to feel like that we're doing everything we can to help them achieve whatever their goals and dreams are. We're going to do everything we can to get them there, and that there's no difference in us. And then some of the, sometimes I feel like people think some of the private schools and charter schools give kids an advantage, and I want my kids and families to think that there's no advantage to being anywhere else, that they can be with us, and we're going to help them achieve anything that they want to achieve in the game and anything academically as well.
Last year, you finished 16-10, but more importantly, you have 4 of your top 5 players returning, and you have, junior Jaden Ellis and also Zion Connor. Those are your 2 top main scorers from last year. What do you expect from those 2 players, and what's your goals and expectations for Greensboro Page this coming season?
Well, starting with those 2 kids, man, Zion and Jaden. Those are 2 studs, man. They are really, really good. I think they're 2 of the best guards in the state. Jaden is I think he's really undervalued. He's got a Division I offer. He's really, really highly skilled. And Zion's just starting to scratch the surface, man. Both of those guys, I think, are going to prove. What sucks is we don't have the opportunity this summer. I think this summer was kind of going to be their chance to really show that they could compete with anybody in the state from a guard position. And then also we got some really good players returning, man. I had 3 sophomores on varsity that were all really good. Josh Scovins, Tyler McIntyre, Grady Sherrill. Those guys are going to be really good, man. Really good kids, really coachable. They're all athletic. Josh and Tyler are pretty big. And I think Josh Scovins is like 6'4", 6'5" now. Mike Maxwell is a really, really good player. Marshall Klug is he's going to be a stud, man. He's 6'7", 6'8", can shoot the ball. He's just starting to figure it out. I actually just talked to Lynchburg the other day about him. He's going to be a really, really good player. Got some other guys. Got Daryl Pfeiffer, a kid who enrolled. He came from Piedmont Classical. He couldn't play this year, but I think he's going to be a really good player. Too many JV kids to even talk about. Had some really good young JV kids, and got a kid, Jason Hancock, and a kid, Gio Nanucci, that enrolled. Gio just enrolled. I don't know if you remember Gio from 8th grade. He was a really, really good player.
He came to one of our camps before. I do remember him.
Yeah, he's going to be a stud, and he's enrolled at Page right now. He was in Spain last year, so
Right.
I think the future is really bright, man. I think, like I said, I thought this summer was our chance to sort of turn the corner and go from like being like, all right, looks like Page is kind of up and coming. They're kind of exciting, to people being like, wow, let me sort of see what they're doing and check it out.
Well, you mentioned Jaden Ellis. I'm going to owe him an apology. We do have him undervalued as well in our rankings, and we'll be making that adjustment for him. So he did have a good year last year, and he had a great game at the Gate City, got the MVP, and he was spectacular that particular game.
He was.
Coach,
33 in that one.
Yeah. You've managed in a short period of time at Southern Guilford, now at Greensboro Page. You sort of turned it around. And what's the biggest challenges you face at the public school sector?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. I think one, just sort of preparing our teams to face adversity, and that's at any level, whether it's private school, public school, charter school, college, whatever. Just preparing your group of kids for adversity, I think is the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of good players and there's a lot of good teams and a lot of good coaches. So to me, it comes down to kind of some like little things. Adversity is going to happen. Sometimes at the public school level, I think there's even more things that are out of your control that we just have to be ready for. It's a big school. There's a lot of other athletic teams. You just never know what a day is going to look like. There's always days you're going to walk in the gym and the AC is going to be out. And it's going to be 100 degrees. You just got to be ready for it. You can't complain. You can't whine. You're going to walk in there, and sometimes maybe in the fall you're trying to prepare, and it's a rainy day, and the soccer team needs to practice. So they're in there, and you just got to prepare yourself to deal with adversity. And we kind of try to do that by building and creating a family atmosphere. And I know that that's kind of a cliche. And Under Armour and Nike put that on shirts last year, and 85% of the teams in the country wore it. But we try to really actually talk about, like, what is family? What is it? What is what makes a family different. And like, I don't know, Proverbs 17:7, we talk about that a lot. A friend loves at all times, but a brother is meant for adversity. And so we look at ourselves as brothers and we're like, hey man, it's easy to be a good teammate when you're up 20, people are getting dunked, people are getting shots, everybody's getting to play. What kind of a teammate are you when, you're getting drilled in the third quarter, and I'm chewing you out and yelling at you in the fan? Like, what kind of a teammate are you then? What kind of a player are you then? And when we really wrap our heads around that, I think we're prepared for any challenge that's thrown our way.
Now, Coach, at the beginning, we stated that, one of the awards you made at the high school level was you got the most improved award. And, a lot of people don't think, oh, most improved, but, I think that award itself speaks volume about who you are as a person, as a coach. How did your work ethic, winning the most improved player, mold you into being the coach you are today? Because you've had tremendous success in a short period of time.
Well, I think I kind of think about it, man. Sometimes I don't want to knock Michael Jordan, especially on this, last chance documentary that just came out. But sometimes they say the better player you are, the harder it is to sort of explain things to other people. Like sometimes, for example, college professors, these guys are just geniuses, and it's hard for them to break down some simple mathematical stuff to a kid who doesn't understand it because it just comes so easy for them. The game didn't necessarily come so easy for me. I had to work really hard to get out of it what I wanted to get out of it. And so I think sometimes that allows me to relate to players better, to be able to break things down better, and sort of just, I don't know, I have to reference a lot of times as a player. I mean, a lot of times I'll say something to a kid, I'll yell at them, get on them about shot selection or something, and I'll kind of check myself and be like, man, I hated it when a coach did that to me. And I got to go back and bring them up and be like, yo, I'm sorry, man. Like, I just want you to know that's a tough shot for anybody, so I think it makes me a little more relatable sometimes to the kids, and that helps certainly in building relationships.
Well, Coach, your work ethic as a player, you as a student athlete, you were high academics, and you've done a tremendous job at Southern Guilford and Greensboro Page. You return a team that's 16-10. You return 4 of your 5 top players, and we expect really good things out of Greensboro Page this coming season. And we want to say thank you for coming on and sort of giving your background, talking about your team today, and say thank you again for coming on and just sharing your story.
Well, shoot, Rick, I really appreciate it. Like I said, give me an opportunity. If you give me a second, I do want to ask you, flip the interview on you and ask you a question.
Okay.
I was just thinking, I got a picture of him right here. It's my little 2-year-old boy right here, Jackson. That's actually one of my challenges I was going to talk about, is trying to balance coaching other kids and then now having my own kid. But I was just thinking, man, I was like, I didn't really get to see your oldest son play much, but Tyler I got to see play. I mean, the kid was 5'11", $150.
Right.
And he was a freaking McDonald's All-American. What were some things as just a dad and still being around the game and other people's kids that helped him achieve such incredible stuff in the game?
Well, early on, we worked on fundamentals. That was the main thing that we worked on. But a lot of it, he did have a natural gift, even when he was younger. Especially he played soccer, and you know how in soccer you always have to make that pitch ahead pass, and he was really, really good as far as court vision. And when he was younger, the things that we did is every time you got the ball, the first thing that we always taught him is look up the court, make that pitch ahead pass. And I think we ingrained that early in to just be a great team player and always do the best you can as far as passing and make your mark there. And like I said, all throughout his childhood, we just worked on fundamentals more than anything else. We didn't go out and play in a ton of tournaments. We played in some, but more than anything else, we just sit there and did a lot of drills and skills and just refined his skill set.
Well, I guess you could definitely see it, man. I think I remember hearing an interview one time with Coach Smith at Oak Hill, and he was like, man, he said Tyler was the only player he ever coached that he wouldn't get picked up in a pickup game if you just looked at him and saw him out there. And I was like, man, to be a McDonald's All-American, and that's special, man. So I don't know if I'm going to get a McDonald's All-American out of it, but I want to make sure I give him the best chance he can have. So
I remember a good Steve Smith story. We'll end on this. They were at one event, and someone came up to Coach Steve Smith, and he goes, "Who's that little white kid right there?" And Steve Smith said, "That's my starting point guard."
That's great. That is great.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Coach. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.